It's an honor to be here with you today. As we begin to think critically about the impacts that are happening across our planet, but also how do we make sure that the voices of our most vulnerable communities have influence and they're beginning to help to mold out the strategies, the actions to make positive change happen? How do we make sure that we are building the partnerships that are necessary and having all those elements that make sure that all voices are being honored, that they're being uplifted, and that we are making transformative change happen? We know that we have a number of different issues that are happening across our planet that are putting people's lives in danger, that are shortening lives, taking lives, but that we know that even with all of the challenges that we have in front of us, the opportunities are even greater when we are willing to work in an authentic, collaborative way. Our organizations, our governments, our frontline organizations, and everyday citizens across our planet coming together can make amazing things happen, even in the face of challenging situations. There was a great writer by the name of James Baldwin who once said that I have to make you aware of the things that you sometimes don't want to see. We know that over 2 billion people across our planet are suffering because of unhealthy water. And we also understand that Indigenous brothers and sisters across our planet have shared with us that water is life. If we understand that, then we should do everything in our power to make sure that we are protecting that most precious resource, that we are including everyone in our sets of solutions. And we know that we also have some work to do to make sure that there are real behavioral changes, but those behavioral changes are actually anchored in the innovation and ingenuity that we find in communities across our planet. We know that sanitation is a serious problem that we're dealing with, but there are those who have solutions in a number of different forms and fashions that can help us to move forward. And we also understand that not only the pollution that exists across our planet is impacting communities, but we also know that the climate crisis is placing additional stressors and burdens on each and every one of us. We have to make sure that the right resources are being shared and utilized to uplift folks, to improve people's lives, to create a North Star, as I often talk about. That North Star makes sure that we are including everyone in the process, not in the middle of the process, not at the end of the process, but actually in the formulation stages. Our nonprofits, our civil organizations, many of them have learned this lesson over the years, but we know that there's still an evolutionary process that needs to happen to make sure that we are integrating all of these various things that will be necessary. We know that in the messaging, in the education, it's so critically important to make sure that those who are often unseen and unheard and undervalued have a real seat at the table. And that when they sit at the table, that table of understanding, that table that allows us to come up with the solutions that are so important, that are so critically necessary, that they will actually have influence inside of that process. You know, in the United States of America, where many people often look to for guidance, where we look for solutions, we know that over 60 million people have been dealing with unsafe drinking water over the last couple of decades. And if that's happening in the United States of America, then we know that these types of things are having even greater impacts in countries like Africa and throughout Asia and in South America. But we also know that there are organizations that are embracing many natural ways of addressing these issues, and then sometimes also partnering those with technology. This is the moment that we find ourselves in. This is a transformational moment, and that's why the information that is being shared here today is so critically important, because we are focused on solutions. We're focused on how we strengthen each other. We're also focused on how do we make our organizations 21st century organizations. You know, we often see that with 19th century and 20th century organizations, there were huge gaps that existed in the way that they did business, in the way that they approached communities, in the way that resources were moved, in the way that we began to think about issues in very siloed ways, often from, if I'm not speaking out of turn, a very Eurocentric way, where we often didn't honor the voices of indigenous communities. We often didn't honor the voices of Black and Brown and Asian and Pacific Islander and other communities. The 21st century set of work means that all of those different groups, all of those sets of experiences, traditional environmental knowledge comes together in sets of solutions that allow us to make real change happen. We honor our partnerships in 21st century organizations. We understand that they make us stronger when they're done with an authentic backing, with an authentic founding, with an authentic anchoring, because we know that no one has all of the solutions. No one has all of the information. But when we come together, we can do some transformative things. We can meet the moment. We can address the climate crisis. We can address the millions who are dealing with sanitation problems. We can address the new sets of innovations that are going to be necessary to get people clean and affordable and accessible drinking water. We can address the pollution that is happening from plastics all across our planet, often doing some devastating things to natural spaces, to our beaches, and to inland sets of impacts as well. But that requires us to have authentic collaborative partnerships. That requires us to think critically about how do we best reach folks? How do we help to utilize the behavioral aspects that make us motivated, that makes us want to get engaged, that makes us want to anchor ourselves to solutions? And also gives us that opportunity, because all of us who work on these issues know that there are going to be those good days. There are going to be those challenging days. And on those challenging days, you have to be able to reach back and know that you have built a strong foundation through your partnerships, through the organizations that you represent, through those times when you thought resources were going to be there and we're going to make it. If we do the foundational work, then even in those tough times, we know that a brighter day is coming. We know that we can hold the coalitions together. We know that we are integrating all kinds of folks into the process in an authentic way, in a loving way, in a human way that is going to matter. And that will help us to be able to navigate both the challenges and these bright sets of opportunities that we have in front of us. When we look and we see the impacts that are happening, we have to be able to place our own selves in that situation, or our family members, or those who we care about, so that we understand sometimes the heartache, the pain, the happiness, the joy that comes from the work that we do, and that it is authentic work. And through that authenticity, we will create transformation. You know, my grandmother believed in authenticity. She shared with me a number of great messages that have helped to guide me throughout my life, throughout my career. Let me just slow down for a second and ask everyone who's watching this video, if you love your grandmother, if you love your abuela, your abuelita, just raise your hand. Do me a favor also. If you have the ability to actually call out their name, I think it's incredibly important that we do that, because they connect us to the wisdom, to the love that we bring to this work. And sometimes we forget to uplift their names and the information that they shared with us that allows us to actually be more effective, to be more transformational, and to make sure that we understand why we do the work that we do. My grandmother shared with me that we have some opportunities. We have some opportunities to make real change happen. We have opportunities to also begin to understand the circle of life, if you will. That circle of life talks about that we are connected to everything. I remember my grandmother sharing with me that everything from the smallest microbe that might be in the soil that we plant our food is connected to the largest animal that might walk or swim in our planet. And that each and every one deserves to be respected. Each and every one deserves to actually be honored because each and every one is needed. Just like each and every one of us are connected in the work that we do, in trying to make sure that we are uplifting communities, that we are making sure that people have a better life. My grandmother also shared with me these things called basic amenities. Those basic amenities are so critically important in the work that we do. I remember taking my grandmother's arm as we would leave church service, and she would walk with my arm and she would stop and I'd say, "Are you okay?" And she would take a deep breath. And I would sometimes see that breath come out in steam when it was a cool fall evening or a fall morning, depending on which one we had went to. And she would say, as it came out, "That's life, that breath." And sometimes we forget how important our air is and the connection to everything. The issues that we work on in relationship to water, the issues that we work on in relationship to the land. And in those basic amenities, she said everyone deserves an opportunity to be able to breathe in clean, fresh, pristine air. And she would also remind me that one of the basic amenities is that everyone should be able to have affordable and accessible and clean water. And we've seen the incredible projects that are going on in the Rare family and even beyond that are focused on making sure that people have that ability to be able to have a drink of water. Think about that for a second. That there are folks across our country in urban settings and in rural settings that haven't had the ability to have a safe drink of water. And that's why we do the work that we do. Those are basic amenities. She used to talk to me about the soil and how everyone should be able to have their shoes off and walk across the land and not have to worry about being impacted by toxins, to not have to worry about being impacted by pathogens. And that's why the work that we do is so incredibly important because it gives us that opportunity, but not only the opportunity to be able to move across the land in a safe way, but also to be able to grow the nutritious food that is so important in us being able to survive and hopefully to be able to thrive, to make sure that that land also has the trees that are so incredibly important, both in making sure that we have that oxygen that is so necessary, but also in helping to hold the soil together. You know, we have so many incredible folks who are working in that space as well to make sure that that is a reality for each and every one of us. She also talked about basic amenities in the form of dignity. There is dignity in the work that we do. There is dignity in the communities that we serve. But we sometimes forget about how incredibly important it is. It speaks to our humanity and being able to see the dignity that exists inside of each and every one of the communities across our planet. And we have to make sure that we're incorporating that into the work that we do. Now, I'll share with you also one last point, and that actually comes from my father. Now, my father was completely different than my grandmother. And it's actually tied to the work that we do as well, because my father was an engineer. He was a man of science. He was also a person that if you came to him, you couldn't bring a problem without a solution. And that is tied into each and every one of you who's watching this today. It's tied into each and every one of the incredible projects that you have heard about and that you will hear about, is that they're focused on making change happen. They're focused on solutions. You know, my father, who I will always be indebted to, often said that solutions are just a set of hopes and aspirations and work that come together to make real change happen. Folks are bringing solutions from North America, from South America, and Central America. from Europe, from Asia, from Africa, from Australia, and other locations across our country of folks who are actually drilling down with the realness of the situations that they are dealing with, but not being anchored to sometimes despair, to sometimes tribulations. They are focused on how do we bring systems together. Something my dad used to talk about. My dad was one of those individuals who believed that natural systems and man made systems can come together to help people to be in a better space, to be in a better place. And that's what this work is all about. It's understanding the innovation, the ingenuity that each and every individual brings to the work that we do. You know, individuals like the soil program that's going on in Haiti, and understanding the challenges that have been in that space and making sure that folks actually have the right types of sanitation in place that are affordable and sustainable. And also understanding that we have to begin to change the mindset of folks that possibilities are realities, that when we come together, we can make real change happen, that we can improve our health and at the same time, improve the health also of the land that's around us. I think my father would be very proud of the work that folks are doing in helping make change happen. Also, the innovational aspect is so incredibly important, and we know no one does innovation better than young people. Young people are fearless. Young people also understand the immediacy of the moment, if you will. They want change to happen now. They look back, and sometimes they haven't seen as much success as they would like to. So they're willing to dive in. They're willing to bring new ideas to the process, to make us stronger, to make us better. And that's why I love the innovative work that was happening and continues to happen in Egypt, where folks could see just the problem. They could look out and they could see plastics. They could see other forms of refuge that are there, but they took their innovation and ingenuity and began to actually create their own musical instruments to bring life into a new situation. To me, that is the power of the moment that we find ourselves in. It is a way that we begin to change people's mindsets about the sets of situations that we may find ourselves in. That even though we may be in a moment that seems dark, that the light is very, very close. And it is the direction that we are heading in. We have an opportunity in this moment coming together to change people's minds, to give them new sets of information, to make sure that when we talk about a behavioral set of opportunities, that we are completely infusing that into the work that we do, that folks, everyday folks, see value in what's going on. And in this moment, we know that we have to be focused at a time when we know that over 8 million pieces of plastic make it into our oceans every day, at a time when we know that 50% of our coral reefs are disappearing. We need each and every person to be a part of that process. We need all of your mind power. And of course, we can all then come together with the resources that are necessary and the individuals who can help to partner in authentic ways. This is the moment that we find ourselves in, a moment where we can make sure that the 21st century looks so much different than the 20th century, where those mistakes that we unfortunately infused into our growth across the planet are no longer there. We can make sure that we're honoring the wealth of information that Indigenous brothers and sisters bring to the process. We can also make sure that we have an intergenerational set of activities where our elders are being honored at the same time as youth being honored. This is the moment that we find ourselves in. And this is why I'm so incredibly excited about everything that's going on with all of the projects, with RARE, and with a number of other folks across the globe who are coming together. You know, Miss Margaret Mead said one time to never doubt that a small group of committed people coming together can make real change happen. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. In this moment, with these sets of projects, with each and every one of you, we may have small groups of individuals in our respective countries, in our respective states, but we are beginning to build a network that will continue to exponentially grow. And that through that growth, we know that we will create a net of protection, if you will, that will ensure that as we move throughout the 21st century, that each and every one of us knows that we will have clean air to breathe, that we will have clean water to drink that is accessible and affordable, that the land that we walk on will be safe and sustainable, and will also help us to produce the food that will be so necessary, and that we will have trees and forests and jungles that will continue to thrive if we do this work together. And the most important aspect is that we also, in the work that we do throughout this growing network, will make sure that dignity is a part of each and every aspect of the projects that we do inside of our structures and also in how we move resources. This is the moment that we have. All we have to do is reach out and grab it. I'm Dr. Mustafa Santiago Ali. It is a blessing to be able to hold space with you, to be able to support the projects that are moving forward in such a transformational way. And it is also an honor to be in this moment in time when we said, yes, we can. But then we said, yes, we will.